Interesting bottom of the table clash, this one. Raptors are in that relegation zone and Bees are trying very desperately to drag their way safely out of that area.
So I think if they win this game, and obviously Rangers then win their next game, Bees are ahead by that 1 point. Yeah. If Raptors win, that is probably the best possible outcome for Bedford Rangers. But it obviously tightens the bottom up even closer.
No, that bottom is definitely still within reaching distance of most of the midfield teams, so quite a lot of teams aren't exactly safe yet, but you'd definitely say that at the bottom, Stafford Raptors and Storm 2 do feel like they're getting more and more settled into being that relegation zone. So it's really up to Raptors to turn it around either this meet or next meet if they want to get out of that area. Great catch there from Meg Crawford. Balancing things out to 5-5.
Yeah, she's great at taking those single ball catches. We obviously didn't see it in the earlier game, but they were on court 1 and I did manage to catch that. But Meg Crawford, like you said, taking those single ball catches, especially in that chest region, that's where a lot of the female players are looking for that single ball catch. It's where they feel most comfortable, would you say so?
I'd say definitely, yeah. And someone like Meg Crawford's very good at keeping an eye out for the catches that are dwindling a little bit high, somewhere that you can catch them pretty easily in that bread box area. In the last game, she got a fantastic one against Rangers that was just, a game-winning catch in the last 2 seconds perfectly in that zone. So she's one of those players you'd trust to get catches when you need them. That being said, Raptors are on fire with their catches right now. Clearly having a great time bouncing on court. Completely turns the momentum of the game around. And another one.
And it's not, you don't normally see it so early on in sort of the, early on in the game, but when you start settling down a lot more, that's when you start taking a lot more catches when you're, set into the game itself. You don't normally see back-to-back-to-back catches like that, but Raptors have certainly found their form.
It's definitely one of those things where I feel like the general wisdom is you get a catch, you try and calm yourself down and make sure that you don't do anything silly, whereas Raptors got a catch, kept going with that momentum and just got 2 more. Great dodging there from Khan.
Maybe not the finest of timings, but like you said, it's the 2 single ball throws that Khan dodges.
It's a tricky one to turn around this for her. I imagine she'll just be wanting to play out the time. Definitely more of an aggressive blocking and running counter type player rather than someone you'd really looks out for those catches, but is capable of catching, so could still turn it around. See, the style she's going for there is very much block, get out of the way, try and get a hit. And that's 3 minutes.
It does obviously get that single ball hit, but like you said, Zoe, when those 3 minutes run out, it will the team that takes those 2 set points will be the team that is obviously ahead on players. If at the end of those 3 minutes both teams are equal, both teams will take 1 set point apiece.
Queens managed to get 3 balls there despite a false start, which meant that their left-hand player, Payne, had to run for middle out of nowhere, but managed to get it simply because Stafford didn't send a middle runner. Always send a middle runner at least, even if you don't think you can beat the opposition. You never know what might happen.
McCarthy just on the settling talk there, that she just makes sure that the team tracks back a little, just so they're not sending running counters and giving Raptors that majority ball, because any team in this Women's Super League, when you've got 4 balls, 5 balls in your arsenal, that's when it starts to look a lot more dangerous.
Definitely. Queens should really be looking to get quite a possessive game here, since already seen the catching abilities of Raptors is very, very high, so you don't really want to be throwing too many singles against them. They will just pick them out of thin air. The balls you can get 3 or 4 balls, the better. 4 balls instead of 3.
Single ball exchange. No targets found though. Lancaster on the wing there for Raptors. Not finding the target of McCarthy. But a nice 2-ball attack.
Very nice 2-ball attack there.
As we say, teams getting the majority of balls. Raptors do throw 3 out of the 4 there, but they do not find the target. Got to be disappointed with that. You're always looking for at least one.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was deliberate. It did look as if they threw 2 at once and then 1 a little bit delayed there, which can be good for, you know, tracking the player and getting them out. But that last ball just didn't manage to find its target, so ends up being a bit of a waste of the balls. Great catch from Payne there. These are looking comfortably up. 6v4.
Bateman there with a single ball attack. That standing counter, but where it's so early, it gives the Bees that opportunity to then, you know, sit back. They take the 4, and this time they're finding the targets time and time again. You know, you might be looking for that aggressive free throw, but if you're not finding the target, you've got to be changing things up because you're just giving Bees majority time and time again.
Raptors also had an interesting situation there where they had 2 of their players paired up very, very close. I imagine the intention was to try and get a catch that was aimed at one of them, but instead what ended up happening is that even though Bees were presumably throwing at 1 target, they got 2, simply because the players were so bunched up together. So it's a dangerous tactic that it can work out brilliantly. You know, can get those sneaky little catches, but in that situation, when you're only 2 players down, maybe it's a bit too risky for Raptors that.
A sub on the side of Raptors. Connell replaces Bateman. Aggressive counter from Dixon there, but does not find the target. Davies drops low. Would you say that's more of the favoured female style of dodge, that drop to the knees and look for the catch?
I don't know. I'd say it's pretty evenly balanced, and you see different tactics across different teams. When we were watching earlier, Derby, you know, love going up and jumping out of the way of balls. Sometimes Storm do as well. Whereas Bees, this current crop of Bees players in front of us, I'd say most of them probably do prefer dropping down, especially Tan over there, who's already squatting ready to drop. Loves going down. The Raptors players, probably about half of them do prefer dropping rather than jumping, but I've seen Mann and Dixon do some pretty impressive jumps in her time. So it really depends on the player and the opposition in front of you. If you're playing a team that tends to throw low and look for those toe shots, it's better to jump, but some players don't adapt in that way, and some do have that ability. Yeah, not sure. What would you say it's like in the men's game?
Probably say it's probably somewhat the same in terms of evenly balanced. It all depends, I guess, on that play style of the team. You have these people that are very acrobatic, and it's the high leap in the air, especially when you have a ball in your hand. It's getting your, say, somewhat the gazelle-like dodge. You know, your back legs flick back behind the ball. Yeah. The ball covers sort of that lower area, and where you have the ball in your hand, it's so much more movable. I think when you drop low, you're always setting yourself way too early, and your next move all depends on sort of how well you've set yourself when you've dropped low.
Yeah, I'd say playing against a team like Raptors, they're a team that doesn't necessarily always target the ankles. They back their power of their throw. They can do things like what they just did there against Payne, where, you know, that ball hit her knees. It wasn't an especially low throw, but it did hit her out. But when you do stuff like that, you end up with a situation like what we just saw there with McCarthy getting a catch that wasn't on the toes. It was, again, that kind of knee region. So I would say with a team like Raptors, probably better off to drop and look for those catches than it is to jump, because if you jump in that situation, you'll probably get clipped on your ankles anyway. So in this situation, I'd say the Bees have the correct dodging style against a team like Raptors. And I'd imagine Raptors should really be going for a similar style of jumping out the way. Bees are veering a bit higher than they should.
And Manchester Bees, obviously, this half do have the net behind them, so they're holding a lot more balls. Back then, and there you go, they get a couple of hits, they get the 2 hits at the end, they do take those. They take those 2 set points, and that's clinical there. It does now put them ahead. As we was talking about the net, they've got the net behind them, so the running counter doesn't have to be aggressive every time. You know, holding those 4 balls can be just as crucial and just as clinical as that running counter.
Definitely. It is a slight advantage between the 2 sides. It's not huge, but it can make the difference in a match like this. You definitely want to be up if you're on the Bees side going into half-time, since you have that perceived advantage. It's the one where you want the advantage at half-time.
Would you say across both the Men's Super League and the Women's Super League that some teams favour the back wall over the net? Is it a mix of, or would you say it's, you know, everyone loves the back wall behind them or the net behind them and you get the go?
I'd say pretty much everyone prefers having the net behind them. I think the only advantage that having the wall behind you offers is if you don't want to keep those balls, and realistically if you didn't want to keep a ball and you wanted to throw it away at the wall, you could just throw it towards the nets on the side. So it's, I can't think of any teams really that would prefer having it the other way around. That's a fantastic ping from Lancaster. That's McCarthy. Very, very good shot. I can't think of any teams that would rather it the other way around. But like I said, the difference is only slight. Some teams play it up to their advantage more.
I think the space behind the back line and the wall is so big that it doesn't affect the game as much as people would think.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, there's some good hits out from Raptors, a couple good catches in the mix. Obviously that does then put them up 5-2 in this set. Those 2 set points behind, obviously this set is crucial for Raptors. Make sure they're sort of within touching distance of the final result.
Interesting one to see now what these players choose to do. You'd really want to catch to turn this around now. Either Crawford or Payne, you know, they're both players that I would back to get those catches over getting the running count. So it could be interesting to see what they go for now in this set play. Lancaster with an incredibly quick running counter there, that just nothing that Payne could do to get out of the way of that. Blisteringly quick up the wing. And Crawford goes for the catch because they can't quite secure it in time.
I think it's the right decision to go for that. You know, they've got the 4 balls. You've got to try and grab and try and fish for that single ball. You've got to turn the set around. It's a big feat to play a 4-on-1, a 5-on-1. So
yeah, definitely. I think, you know, time's running out. You need to pick your time to go for a catch, and that was kind of in an area where she would have been able to get a catch, I think, if it weren't for the 3 other balls that happened to be a very impossible situation.
Oh, McCarthy playing super aggressive, high into that court, and you know, when you're in that neutral zone area, you're going to face balls, but when you're taking catches like that, there's not much that Raptors can really do.
No, that was exactly the right play from Raptors. That's a fantastic catch from McCarthy there. It does feel very much like one of those matches that's defined by which team gets the catches in each half. You know, it's the frames where we've seen Bees get the catches, the ones that they've won, the ones where Raptors managed to get 3 off in a row, then those are the ones they managed to score pretty easily as well. So they quite an evenly matched group of teams, group of players rather, as far as like throwing ability. Both teams have that ability to get those pings like we just saw, but the catching has been incredible so far, and it will probably come down to that ultimately.
It's always good to see that the Women's Super League continues like that. You know, you never want to see a league where one team is week in, week out is going to get beat by 30, 40 points. There's always going to be these teams that take that mental edge sort of,
yeah.
You know, and it's so close throughout.
And
Bateman there obviously taking the single ball catch.
Exactly. Like, anytime we're talking about anything, there's always just a catch that happens right in front of you. It's been an interesting season watching both these two teams, because despite being bottom of the table, that's a great catch again from Bateman. They've both really held their own against those top table teams, top four. But right now against Sheriffs, who are fifth in the table, it could very well be a moment that switches round for Valkyrie.
Back to the game at hand. Oh, and a great catch.
That is 100% how Stafford want to start the second half, and very much the exact opposite of what Bees need to do going forward in this half.
Yeah. Despite the catch from Lancaster, she may be caught with no sort of cover in that neutral zone, and when you're in the middle with one ball, you know a running counter is probably coming your way, and a great time throw, I guess, from Bees.
Especially when you're in the middle of the court, you know, in both directions. It means you're getting diagonal shots from both sides. It's very, very hard to dodge in that situation.
But no hit. Bateman decides not to go for a catch this time around and just gets her hands just out of the way at the last second. It's one of those things that, you know, when you've been catching all game, you want to go for everything that comes your way, but it's a smart decision to then leave some that might just be outside of your comfort zone.
Still very early in the game, and I think if that had happened a minute from now, she would have gone for that catch and probably could have made it, to be honest. But at the moment, you don't need it. You're only one player down, and you might as well just wait until a later point in the game to turn things around. Tan gets a great catch over on the Bees side.
Now 2 players down. Raptors. Bees winning this set will give them that 6-all.
He's playing a nice calm game there, keeping that player advantage of 2 players. The last thing they need right now is a catch from Raptors, which should turn things back around. They just need to sit comfortable on their laurels now and keep that 2-player advantage for as long as they can. It's this Bees team is a team that's capable of that speed and those counters, so if they wait for those 4 balls, go with those, then they can avoid a catch which might ruin the game for them. Great hit on Dixon there. Again, could have been a very different story. It was a ball that was flying a little bit high. It's only a matter of time with Raptors. Catch flips the game around, and it's back to 3-3. Full time, 3-3. The score is now 7-5 to Raptors. And it's that catch that just turns it around. That's the thing, is that they are a team that's capable of catching, so you should never count them out.
Like you said, you know, obviously Raptors down in that set there, and Bees looked like they were going to take it. Those couple of key decisions at the end, and it's sometimes that last 30 seconds, last 15 seconds that are so panicky that can make sort of sets and make the difference. So good to get a draw out of that.
No, huge for Stafford, and it was really good of them to keep their calm and keep an eye out and wait for Bees to make a mistake and just let a ball drift too high. And in that situation, that was a single, I believe, that Bees had thrown that got caught. So same again there, you know, all Stafford have to do is wait around for a single that drifts a little bit too high. And really in that end game previously, you'd be looking to get the ball to, you know, not even be live ideally by the time it gets to the player, just bounce it slightly in front of them, because a team like Raptors will get anything that's even slightly above the foot.
And sort of rewind it. Obviously, we don't have the rewind on the stream, but sort of rewind a player go. Dixon, you know, he looks for that running counter, but then decides to hold because she's thinking that one step ahead. It's a bit like that game of, you know, chess. She's thinking the play ahead. Tries not to throw because if she is cross court and has that free throw sort of opposite her, so she's rethinking that next step rather than sort of trying to trade lives. They're up. They don't need to play risky. You know, they're up 3 players at this point. So
they can just rest, and also, you know, playing that riskier game where you're throwing those singles, that gives the opportunity again to bees to make the catch, because while Raptors have been on fire and have definitely had the advantage catching wise so far this match, and they make another one there, then it's not as if bees have been slouching too much on the catches either. They have been getting them when they're there. It's just Raptors aren't placing them in catchable areas quite as much. So if you're, you know, a player like Dixon and you're looking to throw a single, you only really want to be doing it in a situation like that we just saw, where you're confident you can get an ankle shot and it's not going to be caught under any circumstance.
Yeah, that cross-court sniper that we, you know, she can't throw. She takes the ankle from far back. It's a great throw to get the power from back of the court.
Both teams here just seem to be quite happy with letting the time play out and don't need anything particularly risky. There you go. Catch finishes it up.
Timeout called, and bees are obviously going to have a bit of a talk and think about sort of next couple of sets that are coming their way.
Definitely. They can feel it slipping away from themselves a bit, and it's not as if the last few sets have been especially close, I would say, either. Or at least that last one was absolutely not close, so you need to have a sit down and rethink what exactly is going wrong and how you can change it. I'd say accuracy is definitely the big issue at the moment coming from the Bees side, that they're, you know, Raptors are an incredibly good catching team, but they're only doing so well and getting so many catches because those catches are in the right area. If a ball wasn't in that catching zone, they wouldn't go for it, and it would be a much different game. So for Bees at the moment, you'll be thinking, how do we stop throwing in the hands of Debbie Bateman?
And that's it. Bees have to think about fine-tuning their throws. The throws aren't bad throws. When you're throwing into that area that Raptors happily take a single ball catch, then, you know, you've got to start looking at where you're throwing and those areas you're throwing, because at current, Raptors, although they're taking the catches, their throws every time, their single balls, their 2 balls have been on point, very accurate and great timed.
Also a question as well of if you want to change the type of possessive game that you're playing. If you want to be giving the Raptors more balls purely so you get more of a chance of getting a hit, so throwing 2 out of 3 from the Bees side. Question then becomes, are Raptors converting attacks into hits? And I would say, yeah, they kind of are. So it makes it a very tricky game for Bees to change if they can't fix their accuracy. There's not really much else they can do to change the pace of the game.
Start looking into these high risk, high reward sets, because, you know, we spoke about it in the first half. Now Raptors have the net behind them. They can play the slower game. They don't need to rush anything. They're 2 sets up. You know, you play the 3 minutes out and you're starting to look towards that finish line, the end of the game, where you're winning those sets and winning those sets at the 3-minute mark. So
yeah, I think they'll be quite happy to just gently ease out the rest of the game now. Whereas Bees are going to have to be on the front foot and just kind of pushing a high gear now to try and get those wins.
Nice single ball return. Dixon does find the dodge. It's that simple, 1 leg up, nothing too complicated about it.
That being said, it was at least within a nice non-catchable area, so you know, can't complain too much there. At least there wasn't a catch. That is the downside, though, to keeping those throws lower. Is with a team like Raptors, they can just change that up and just lift up a leg, get out of the way, and they'll be fine. So if they're not too bothered about winning things quickly now, which they shouldn't be, great catch from Khan.
That is a solid catch. It's that low down. She's dodged the first one. She's tracked the second one. Perfect catch.
And against an incredibly solid player in Lancaster. Brilliant catch there from Davis. Cross-court catch. I wonder if that might be what they're discussing, though, whether or not it hit the ground.
Yeah, so I think they'll have a little discussion in terms of if it's a bounce on.
It definitely fell between her legs. The question would be whether or not it hit the ground between her legs before she got a hand on it. Tricky to read from here.
It is a tricky one. It's one of those ones that I think then if they call the catch, I don't think it even can be a catch because she doesn't actually even secure it. So I think it hits the ground. Oh, it is a catch.
I think it was a catch.
Yeah, okay.
I think it's a matter basically of whether or not you manage to get your calves underneath your thighs when you drop down like that, which is a weird one to think about. But you know, in that situation, if you manage to get your legs tucked underneath you, that stops the ball from hitting the ground, which means by the time you get your hand on it, it hasn't hit the ground, and you do secure the catch. So ends up being a very, very good catch from Bees. That.
Good to see that centre ref has called on Relton of this backcourt ref who probably has the best eye on it. So you're almost judging on that ref, and that's why we have those line refs as well as the two centre refs.
I was going to say the centre refs would have had a really, really awkward angle for vision. The only person who would have really been able to see it was Relton.
Good one-for-one trade, and that's what you need to be looking at from Raptors. We've probably got about 3 minutes 40 left on the clock of this game. So
that being said, I'm sure Bees will be quite happy with a one-for-one trade at the moment with their player advantage. If they can get 3 more one-for-ones, then that's the set wrapped up quite nicely for them. Yeah, like I said before, for a match that's defined by catches, Bees are doing well in this set, but it's because they've had 2 catches. Very much coming down to that in this match.
Oh, the standing from Dixon. Oh, another great throw there as well. They've turned that set around. It's those 2 clinical ones. Davies goes for the catch, doesn't make it.
Yeah. Oh, I think she's got an injury from her previous game as well, so that would have been quite a tricky one for her to get.
So with the 2 players up, it's those, you know, we talk about it time and time again, how drastic and how different those last 10 to 30 seconds are, and how sets can really be decided in that. You might have 6 apiece right until the last 30 seconds.
And the question there as well is, you know, if that catch wasn't one that you were confident you could make, is that the right move to go for? Should you take that draw? But at the moment, with the the point difference being what it was there, it would still be 2 sets ahead for Stafford. It's now 3. That would have been too much really for Bees to close in the time remaining. So she really did have to go for that catch. It's just incredibly awkward. That being said, this one started off with a catch again, and Bees are up again.
Personally, I think it's a little too late in the game.
Definitely.
You're looking at just under 2 minutes now, 1:45, I guess, on the clock.
Yeah.
Left to go. Although Bees are 2 up, they need 3 sets to win to even look at drawing this game. So
I think impossible at this point to really turn it around. But the league, the way that it is, then that set difference might end up being, the difference at the end of the day. Stafford will come out of this meet with 1 win against Bees probably, and then Bees will come out with their win against Rangers. It means that, the gap between them is still not that great in the table. Bees aren't safe from that relegation zone. Stafford are getting a bit safer.
And so Tan normally, nearly takes that catch.
Yeah.
So she's jumped in the air, it's come towards her. She nearly gets it secure, but doesn't quite find the hands on it.
Raptors splitting their targets there, which has worked for them a couple times. Didn't quite work there. Reaching for a catch there.
Going for anything, I guess.
I was going to say, I think
you're up 3 sets.
You've wrapped it up. You might as well just go for glory at this point.
But I think it's crucial for the Raptors as much as it is Bees that we talk about this set difference, but the set difference for Raptors, even at the bottom of the table, will be just as clinical for them.
Absolutely. And if it does come down to, talk about the relegation race, it will probably be, if there is a three-team race, these will be the other team. So, you know, you want to really be getting those sets now, because not only does it make a positive set difference for you, it also is a negative set difference for the team that might be the one that you have to beat in set difference at the end of the league. So it's a really important one to get that set difference in this match as opposed to a different match.
Yeah, coming into these dying seconds now. This game. Drop low, you get under the first one. The second one's a nice simple pop. Raptors just looking to close this set out, and it close it out comfortably.
Great catch from Crawford. She's had a hell of a day today. And that gives Bees the advantage. Like you said, too little too late, but it'll look nice on the scoreboard. And in the highlights reel.
Of course.
And Raptors managed to get another catch and out, it looked like, which means Bees are still comfortable with 3-2.
Yeah, 3-2, the end of the game, the end of the set. So that final score, 11-7 to Raptors. Great result for them.
Absolutely.
Slightly disappointed if you're Bees.
Yeah, no, tricky game for Bees. I think were it not for the fact that they beat Rangers earlier today, this would be a match that would really define the season for them and break them. But thanks to that cushion that they got with the win against Rangers earlier today, I don't think they'll be coming out of today feeling too bad. Both teams, a lot to be happy about in that match. A couple areas of improvement for both of them. You know, Raptors were definitely going for catches they didn't need to at certain points, but at the same time, they got them so many times that can you really fault them?
Positives, I guess, from both teams. You know, mental reset after that second game. Look forward to round 8, and obviously the results that you're gonna have to look at taking. Raptors still to play Rangers for the second time, I believe. That's still
so,
a game, sort of in that thing. Next up on this court, we've got Spartans versus Bedford Mighty Eagles. The top of the table is just as tight as the bottom.
Yeah, should be a really good match.
All right, thank you very much. I believe that was only a timeout where we thought the clock had ended.
I'm confused. Does that mean Raptors?
Me too.
I assume that must have been a Raptors timeout, but I'm not sure why they would have called it.
To slow any momentum down?
Just because they could, maybe.
So we continue on?
So we keep going. Yeah. Well, that's weird. This should be the last one, though, now.
I can't imagine there would be much time on the clock. It's hard to tell that. I think where a timeout has been called, the clock isn't tuned up with sort of the rest clock. So
that can kind of throw things off a bit. It should only be a short set now, which means both teams will want to be playing relatively safe once they've got the player up. Catch made by Payne. Everyone looks confused. Catch and out. There you go.
Yeah. Taken plenty of those standing catches in that centre region in this game. She'll be proud of that. Plenty of catches that have come her way.
Like that evens everything to 5-5 again because of the fact that it was a catch and an out. So, you know, burden now on Bees to actually turn it around if they want that point difference. Go for a running counter, but the timing's just slightly off there. Won't quite manage to throw together. Fantastic post throw, I believe, from Khan there. Give Bees the player advantage, 5-4. And Bees have the advantage. Really great set of plays there. They decide to split their throws, though I don't think that was intentional looking at their faces.
But I think it's sometimes have to risk something like that.
Oh, definitely.
You know?
Yeah, I think in matches like this, that can actually be a really wise thing to do to pick one target that you sort of go off for. Just because everyone will be looking at the two-ball attack. That was very close to being a catch from Khan there. Doesn't quite manage to get it. He's still up by one player. Yeah, McCarthy just dawdles a bit too long in the midfield there.
And that is the final result.
We believe.
Yeah.